Hello, hello.
Are we live?
We're live.
So I turn my phone off. I'm not disturbing.
Just gonna wait a minute or two with this acoustic music. This rainy day.
It's AI jam.
Yes.
It's Chat GPT accompaniment.
Mm-hmm. Man, I love AI.
I do too. I also love waking up to rain like today.
I know.
That's like my favorite thing ever.
I know, but I just want to lay down when there's rain. Like
So much laying down. All laying down. All day. It's about nap time.
I know, but
if you woke up before 10, it would be nap time.
I did sleep through my alarm today, but I'm up
Here we
and
are.
ready to start the day. You guys probably know me. I'm Casey.
Nena.
And I do member engagement for the NNBA, and Nena's the president. We're starting a new series, which I'm excited about because I just think it's something that isn't talked about enough. Like bedside is talked about a lot, and entrepreneurship is talked about a lot, but sort of like the in-between is just the career alternatives. Maybe you're not ready to have your own business. Maybe you're interested in it at some point, but you want to get a little more experience. I just kind of want to spend some time talking about the in-betweens, you know, the jobs where you're still hired by somebody, you're still an employee, but you're doing something different than just bedside, whether that's like leadership or a really niche specific thing. So Nena's had a ton of experience about this. So I'm going to let her kind of start out, but then I'll talk about mine because I've also had some experience.
Yeah, I love that this is part of what the NNBA represents because, you know, bedside is such a need. We have to have nurses taking care of people, but also there are like points in your career where you either just need a break or you want to do something different or you want to learn about something or you have skills, like your God-given skills that you have might be in administration or management or research. Like research is huge right now. Forensic nurses are huge right now. Like I don't think we talk enough about alternatives, and it's one of the number one things I see nurses looking for and asking about. Like if you're in any Facebook groups with, you know, remote nursing is huge right now. The remote jobs, especially since COVID, I feel like they've may have gone back out into the offices or gone back out into the field somewhat now post-COVID, but there's still a lot of remote jobs out there. A lot of things can still be done remote. And so I know there's a ton of interest in that. And I just think the possibilities are endless. And we don't, like you said, we just don't talk about them enough because there's either like do your own thing or take care of patients. But that's not a fit for everyone. I meet a lot of nurses that want to do something different, but don't necessarily want to work for themselves. And I can totally understand that because being your own boss is hard. You know, this guy runs a real loose ship. And so, you know, you're kind of directing, when you're your own boss, you're directing all of the components yourself. And when you're an employee, if you're not ready to transition into self-employment, the perfect situation would be to be in a career that utilizes all your skills and keeps you engaged and interested, but not completely fried and demanding. And sometimes the career alternatives can be, not that they all are, can be less demanding or more like higher level than, you know, patient care or bedside nursing.
I also think a lot of people want to start their own business. They have that desire, but they don't like really know. Like say you want to do midwifery or doula or some kind of, you know, something like that, something specialized, but you've never actually worked in it. It's important to like go get that experience and learn what it's all about before you put all of your eggs in one basket and then realize maybe that it's not for you or that you're missing some major components. So I think it's really important to just kind of, sometimes you just need to dip your toe in the water before just completely diving in. And I understand why people want to do that. So
I agree.
What roles before you were a business owner did you take on before you started your own business?
I did a bunch of cool things. So I started out, like, if we're going all the way back, I started as a CNA, and then as I kind of went from long-term care to hospice, I started doing different roles than I had done before. I was in leadership and management most of the time in long-term care and hospice as a DON.
Mm-hmm.
So my bulk of my experience in long-term care, I was an LPN. I did have the cart. I did do patient care, and I did do med passes. And when I transitioned into DON, that was kind of where you're almost like middle management, because you're responsible for everything and have very little support above you. Like, you have one person, your nursing consultant, and that's how I originally learned about consulting. I believed that a consultant was always an employee. Mm-hmm. So there are employment opportunities for consultants. They're just kind of few and far between and require a lot of experience. But I kind of morphed into doing leadership remotely. So when I was with hospice, I was the administrator of the provider over, at that time, 17 hospices. And then we grew and had 30 locations, and I was the area vice president of operations. So I wasn't even clinical at that time. So there's a lot of nurses doing stuff that's not clinical and not utilizing your nursing license. Of course, your nursing skills and everything you've learned are going to come over no matter what. You're going to use that knowledge to better the care given. And I did that, I feel like I did that as an operator too. But there are tons of nursing careers that aren't even clinical. Mm-hmm. And leadership, options are definitely one of those. Consulting is definitely one of those. And those are employment opportunities that are out there. But probably my favorite, non-traditional role was utilization manager. I was over all 450 Kindred locations in North America. And I would look at their DME, their medical equipment, and how much it was costing and what the contract was and what they were using. So I got to use both my operational and my clinical skills, because we had to look at the patient and say, is this a need? And if so, we're going to push for them to have it. Or is this something the family requested that there's no really benefit to? I got to really use both sides of my brain there. Mm-hmm. as a nurse and what I had learned from operations, because I'm not a business person. I don't have an MBA. I cried more tears over budgeting and P&Ls, learning how to budget as an area vice president and how to represent the budget to my leadership than probably over anything else in my whole career combined. Every time a patient hit me, yelled at me, family member yelled at me, cussed at me, screamed at me, I could walk away with that. But you put a budget in my face and tell me to present it to a team and it's over. I had to learn all of that in the job.
Yeah.
But that's the benefit of doing that as an employee, that mm-hmm. you have people and resources. You have the finance team, you have a data analyst, you have these other team members who can help support you.
Right. Yeah. I was just talking to the nursing program that I went through. I went and talked to them last week, and that is something that I kind of went over with them. I was like, there's so many options that you could do, employed by a hospital, start at the hospital, work bedside if you'd like, and then see if you could get into some kind of management role, or see if you could get into for me, the way I went is I went to business development and sales and marketing. So I applied for a job fresh out of LPN school that said you had to have a BSN. And I went to the interview anyway. And I was like, why do you have to have your BSN? Because I think I could really do this. And I did get the job, and that opened so many doors for me. I was an employee, but I had a ton of flexibility. It was better money. It was better hours. I didn't work holidays. I didn't work nights, which was so different than my bedside job. And I learned so much about, marketing and business development and even PR. I learned so much, which helped me in my career tremendously. So, I think the skills that you pick up will really serve you as a business owner if you decide to become one, or even just in other roles if you, want to just stay as an employee and do career alternatives. That's so hard to say. So let's talk about pay, because that's what everyone wants to talk about anyways, including me. When did you realize like there was way more money and way more opportunity in working for yourself or working in career alternatives like your mid-management operations jobs?
Not initially, because my first DON job, I made $27 an hour. So that's special.
Which is less than I made for my first LPN job.
Thank you.
So I'm just saying it's possible.
I feel you. But pay. I think these remote jobs that I'm seeing now, you're like, they're starting at $47 an hour. So I mean, I do think they're out there. They're very competitive and there's lots of applicants. But what I love about what you said you did is you showed up, you got the opportunity to be interviewed, you put yourself in front of them anyway. You weren't unqualified. That's the point I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
I would not encourage, like when I tell people to apply for any job they want, and I do, I say like, when I talk to nurses who are like, I'm miserable, I'm like, apply for something you want to do. Just to apply for it. Worst they can do is toss it out, or they're, what is it, ATS system or whatever it is that sorts through applicants and throws them out. It's AI, I'm sure. But like, prepare for, apply for jobs you're not qualified for. I encourage that. Like, you qualify yourself. Now, if it's a explicit requirement, like you have to have a certification in correctional nursing or 10 years of experience in correctional nursing, and you have nothing close to that and know nothing about it, would I encourage you to apply for that? No. But like for you knew exactly what the job requirements are, and then it did not require a BSN to do that job. That was some BS company policy. They decided to say all nurses needed this or that. And for that kind of job, is a BSN required? No, you had all the qualifications and showed up and did a great job. Now, are there certain situations where a BSN should be a requirement or an MSN should be a requirement? Maybe, yeah. But it's just one of those things where you can prove you're qualified. You qualify yourself. I'm qualified for this career because of these skills that I already have from nursing, or because of this experience, or these innate personality skills that I have.
That was a big part of it, is like that job, clinical marketing, clinical sales, like anything like that, business development. Like you really don't need, being a provider of some kind of care, whether you're like a social worker, a nurse, or whatever, it is helpful because you do have a little bit of credibility over someone that just has a sales degree or whatever. But it's not like she said, I wouldn't apply to go be an MD somewhere.
Right.
Like
juris doctor.
Right.
A juris doctor is required.
Yes.
Oh, it's for me.
Yes. I wouldn't apply for a job like that. But realistically, what did I need for this job? Clinical knowledge and knowing like the terms and stuff. Okay, I've got that. But really what I have is people skills and sales knowledge. And I, worked other jobs that were non-medical sales. So definitely you can kind of discern whether that is
and sometimes these companies are literally looking for the right person, right? They may not translate through their hiring process or through their job description, but sometimes they are literally searching for the right person for the job, or the right cultural fit. I talk to hospices all the time that are looking for the right cultural fit to run their program, and they would be more than willing to train that person if they had any, the right experience and the right attitude. So one more thing on pay, these career alternatives, often non-bedside positions have bonus structures. So for sales,
talking about
me too. I completely dropped off.
Yeah.
But so they have a bonus structure for meeting and exceeding goals, because they're not patient-centered roles for the most part. You're not providing direct care.
Right.
So there's an incentive to meet objectives for a lot of leadership positions and a lot of sales positions and a lot of remote. I even know of remote positions or other positions that are academic that have a bonus incentive structure based on quality or based on productivity for these remote roles. If even some of these remote roles where you're reaching a specific outcome with a patient on the call or a specific, procedure, or which some of that can be unethical. I'm not even going to go there. But a lot of these have bonus incentive structures available.
Right. Yeah, that is very true. And that is something that I think people overlook. They might, like a lot of sales positions, even medical, like you'll get paid maybe like a lower scale of salary, but then you have monthly bonuses and quarterly bonuses and yearly bonuses. So you end up making, significantly more. So you do have to look into that a little bit and not just look at what's listed on whatever job website you're looking at. But Diane, yeah, that's such a good, I applied for a training manager position. I didn't have sorry, I can't read that. But yeah, exactly. Like you had the skills. Sometimes you can't learn, like, yes, you can get the degree, but you can't learn how to talk to people or how to, that kind of stuff is just kind of like an innate skill. So
I also love that career alternatives are the perfect bridge or transition period to self-employment, because especially in leadership roles or in sales roles, or even in like clinical education and staff development, risk management, informatics, you're developing a specific, like to your point, a specific skill set. And you're also developing yourself as a leader. Even if you're a forensics nurse or an informatics nurse or an educator, when you are in a role that requires you to function at a higher level than providing direct care, providing direct care is much more task driven than a career alternative role is. Maybe not remote nursing, depending on what you're doing. Remote nursing can be very similar to factory work for a lot of nurses. They don't like it.
Yeah,
I hear that a lot. It's micromanaged and you're checking boxes, right? They don't like that. But not every career alternative job is like that. And most aren't, other than those remote, high productivity remote roles. But these roles are developing that expertise that sets you apart from providing direct care. And a lot of the time when you're working for yourself or you're opening a business, a lot of nurses aren't opening a business that requires direct care. A lot are, like home care, private duty, aesthetics, foot care. Those are all providing some kind of direct patient care. But for someone like me or a coach, you're not dealing with patients anymore. You're dealing with other nurses. You're dealing with organizations. You're dealing with providers of healthcare. And so you're developing these higher level skill sets that help you be more autonomous, more independent, and more aware of your expertise as a nurse.
Yeah. And even like, kind of just to bounce off what you said, just something that hit me in the brain here was like when my first bedside job was psychiatric nursing. And years later, when I decided like, okay, I've been doing medical sales and stuff, I was still PRN there. I had all these skills. I knew so much about psych that I was able to do my first contract, position as an office manager. I do like client management for a physician out of Seattle. And I gained all this knowledge. He's a psychiatrist. So I gained all this knowledge. He wanted a psychiatric nurse that knew the medications and knew how to kind of triage the patients in a way that was safe. And, when he was out of town and stuff like that. So I am super glad I did the bedside thing. I learned so many skills like delegation and time management. And also, it helped me step into my first self-employment role. So I still do that. It's been years now. So that's really awesome. So that was definitely a stepping stone towards entrepreneurship. And I bring that up because I wanted to ask you, like, what job, if you can narrow it down, what job do you think was the best stepping stone toward entrepreneurship for you?
That's a really good question, because I feel like pieces of all my jobs were like what I have built into my business now.
Right.
But if I had to pick one, I would probably say the utilization management position, because it was so autonomous. The boss that I had in that role was my same boss when I was an area vice president, and I loved him. He was not a micromanager, but he wanted things met and he wanted you to figure it out. And so I had a lot of autonomy to create my own schedule, to create my own travel. When I needed to go do education, I had to create the education. There was no program built. We were building that program out.
Right.
And so if I needed to go build out a utilization management program for a growing hospice, I could do that right now.
Right.
And so I think when you're in a role, and most of the time, I will say, unless you're at a hospital with a lot of committees, maybe most of the time bedside nursing doesn't offer this type of autonomy where you're building out a program. Now, I do know some nurses. One of our nurses at the NNBA conference, not this year, but last year, had built the whole surge tech training program at her hospital. She was just an OR nurse, right? And it's like, well, what have you done that you could replicate and change into your own business in your own approach? Because when you're doing it for your hospital or your doctor or your, patients, you're doing what they want. You're doing it the way they want it done, or you're doing it the way the policy says you have to. When you're building your own business, you're like, you know what? That was so dumb that they did it that way, but they had to because that was their internal structure and that was the only way they could manage it, right? Mm-hmm. Around all these hoops and, potholes and things they had to avoid. You can create that in a way that you think would be better and sell that program to an organization as a consultant. And so it's like that prepared me for building out programs, creating resources, planning big projects, planning travel to sites. Like as an employee, I did those things that I'm doing now for my own business.
Yeah. That reminds me of the last job that I had when I lived in Texas, and they had brought on one of the nurses. She was just working bedside like the rest of us, and she ended up getting nurse educator. And since she became a nurse educator, I was there for like another year before I left, and they had like an insane percentage of people stay versus like the turnover rate went way down because there was better training. And that was like the main complaint was all these nurses being like, there's not enough training and there's too many things and I can't remember. So I left. It was too stressful. So I remember telling her, like, you could build a whole like onboarding process and be a consultant for them. They're not going to want to lose you because you just built this whole thing, or do it for other places. That's super valuable. Turnover costs so much money in businesses. So,
and what you're alluding to is intrapreneurship. Mm-hmm. So like starting your own program with an employer. And that's a great option to transition into your own business as well. And the only word of caution that I always have to throw in when you're an intrapreneur is if you're an employee of a company and you create the most amazing education and onboarding program with PDFs and documents and a whole dashboard of what tasks and checkoff competencies and all of this amazing content, it all belongs to them.
Yeah.
It's all their intellectual property. It's all theirs. You can't sell that to someone else. You can't claim that as your own. You're their employee.
Yeah.
So and most of the time, like when I was at the little hospital and I saved them $660,000 in 6 months on traveling nurses. My favorite question to ask and try to get people to guess is how much extra I made for doing that.
Nothing.
Yeah, $0.
Yeah.
Because I was little Debbie DON there holding my place and doing amazing things, but you don't get extra for that when you're their employee. It's like, well, this is the baseline of what we would expect you to do.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, no one else in 20 years has done it. Why would that be a baseline expectation? And so it's like, there's a lot of disappointment when you are kind of at someone else's mercy for what happens to your baby or your
all this
that you've put into an employer. And I don't mean to bash employers, but that's their company. That's that's their prerogative.
Yeah.
So
Diane said, does boredom and monotony play a role in decision-making for a change?
Yeah, absolutely. It always did for me. I think you want to find something that's the right balance of challenge and reward, because then you won't ever get bored. And if like you thrive on taking care of people, you could probably be in bedside for a really long time and never get bored. But then you deal with these corporate structures that just kind of chew up nurses and spit them out. And that's not every organization, but a lot of organizations now aren't equipped to support their nurses at all.
Yeah.
And that's not their priority, frankly, for a lot of organizations.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I can definitely speak confidently to the hospice world and to the clients I work with. Taking care of their nurses and preventing burnout and making it a great place to work is a really high priority for them.
Yeah.
So I think that varies from company to company. And you could evaluate that if it's your company that you're feeling bored or burnout or monotony, or if it's the role is not challenging enough. Some of these remote jobs that nurses are in are very, very monotonous and they're miserable, right? So they're essentially making phone calls all day and asking a set amount of questions as a case management or a navigator, or they're just recording data, or they're just auditing charts. When I have big chart audit projects, it is pulling teeth to literally pulling my fingernails out one by one to get through some of the detailed things we have to check for, especially in hospice audits. So I think it speaks to a couple things, like what are your skills? Because sometimes our skills are what light us up. So your skill might be in detailed stuff and you might absolutely just love that and thrive on the details, where for me, that exhausts me.
Right. Yeah. And I also think like every position you have, even if it's monotonous, even if you hate it, even if it's boring, before you get out of it, like you are networking, you are building connections, you are learning. So, some of my least favorite jobs, I've met the most valuable people in my career. So, I mean, I try to look back at it and think like, yes, I didn't like that job. I didn't, feel like I was good at it, or I didn't feel like I was successful, or I didn't like the work, but I made so many connections that hooked me up to another job, or somebody else that taught me something great that's helped me a lot in my journey. So,
and I feel like like you're saying, everything's a learning experience. Even if you learn that you don't like something, that doesn't mean it was a waste. That could have been extreme.
Everything about that
role. That is not the right fit. And you learned that, and you had to have that experience to get that information. There was no other way. Like, I have actually had people who called it in the air. We're like, don't do this. This is not, you were probably one of them. You're like, why would you want to do that? You hate that. And I'm like, oh, it's great. It's because it's
good money.
Yeah, it's great money. And then I'm absolutely miserable. You almost have to go through the experience to learn from it yourself. Yeah. Especially if you're stubborn like me. You can't be told anything.
I've been like that forever. Yeah. Just with everything. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to, put them in the little chat box. We're going to wrap this up pretty soon. We just wanted to cover some of the basic stuff. I'm going to bring on some people that are doing specific career alternatives. This one, I just kind of wanted to go over all the different options and kind of our journeys, because both of us have had I feel super, super lucky to be only a nurse for almost 7 years, I guess. And I've had some amazing experiences. And so I really just want to make sure that everyone understands that we're not just here for entrepreneurship. The NNBA is here to support career alternatives and just help you figure out where you fit as a nurse. Do you want to add anything to that?
I love that. And I also feel like I've been super blessed to have opportunities to learn things, because like I said, just related to the budgeting, none of my roles, even though I was a DON and I had to regulate the nursing budget, it was essentially like, how many nurses are working this shift? 6.
Yeah.
Well, you're only budgeted for 5. Oh, okay. And then you have to make that change. But I never had like the responsibility for finances. So being able to learn that was huge for me.
Yeah.
But I think there are so many good options for career alternatives that I'm really excited to learn about. We are looking for people who are in these type of roles. So some of the roles we're looking for might be quality, compliance, leadership, like CNO, risk management, safety, utilization review, insurance appeals, case management, what else? Public health nursing and school nursing.
Mm-hmm.
And we always give preference to our members. So we would love, if you're an NNBA member, we would love to have you come on and talk about career alternatives that you've done in the past. It doesn't even have to be something you're currently doing, just a role that you held before you moved to doing your own thing, and that was a great transition path for you to entrepreneurship. We'd love to we'd love to hear your story. So let us know. You can
Yes.
email Casey at Nurses Business.
Yes. Thank you, Sharon, for this non-biased review.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
We love you.
And just a little behind the scenes, she's been sending me funny pictures this whole time, trying to get me to break. So next time, Mom, I'm posting the photo on the live. Diane said, although your talks focus on health industry, some content has encouraged me.
Aww.
Thank you. Please share all this stuff. We're really trying to grow the NNBA. We think we can help a lot of nurses. I hear all the time that, people feel stuck, or people are just not sure what they want to do. And I think a lot of it is fear, that they're just afraid of what's next.
I just put the website in there for you, Diane, that you can refer a friend to.
Yes. And you can share this. We would love to have more people subscribe to our YouTube. We have a ton of information, and we're really trying to increase value for our members and spread the word.
Absolutely.
So
awesome. Well, thank you for doing this series. I'm excited about it.
Me too.